And if you're not, please put yourself on the mute as a courtesy to your fellow colleagues. Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Praveen Barala, and I am the Director of Clinical Operations at J&J. I'm an internal medicine by training, practiced for 2 years, and then decided to join corporate for clinical trial operations. Now I manage early phase oncology trials. My specialty is in oncology, especially heme and solid tumors. I manage the whole portfolio of ED oncology at Janssen, which is the pharmaceutical wing of J&J. Work from home, but once a week I go to Springhouse campus in Pennsylvania just for networking. We do have in Raritan, New Brunswick, and other campuses too. So that's a brief introduction about myself. At Solars, I teach clinical trial operations, but I'm giving you the orientation here because I also involve in, as you know, as a portfolio director, you liaise with different cross-functionalities across pharma. And especially now it's the future of artificial intelligence, data analytics. So operations plays a big role in collaborating with all folks who works in data management part. We use the word very loosely, data management, but it's a humongous domain where people with different ID backgrounds comes into picture, work in a matrix environment to make things happen, especially in clinical trials. Now, the reason I mentioned about the early development is ED, meaning phase 1. We're going to go over those phases later, but if you are starting the trial for the first time, we don't know what's going to happen. They're still figuring out, right? So based on emerging data, we re-strategize our path moving forward. So in order for us to even dose escalate, okay, we started the dose in the human beings. What is the next dose to achieve? And then how are we going to alter the doses when we move on? How are we going to know that? Data. Without data, we can't do anything. And how are we going to capture the data? That's through different systems we use. And SAS plays an important role in capturing the data. And it itself says SAS Analytics, right? So it's one part adding to the data analytical domain. SAS plays its own part in capturing the data from different systems and giving a meaningful presentation of listings and tables in LSAP format. So as an end user, I can see that in a dashboard. Either it can be from pharmacokinetic samples, pharmacodynamic samples. In that way, it can give me a meaningful decision as to what's my clear path moving forward, what dose I need to escalate. So in order for me to take decisions, I need to rely on analytics, and SAS plays one of those important roles in those analytics. Is it clear? Now,
what is both of your roles in this session, in the course?
Both in the sense.
You and Geeta?
Geeta is our student services coordinator.
Oh, coordinator.
Yeah. And I'm giving you introduction, but probably you might come back to me for clinical operations part of the SAS, I think, at some point. And then my colleague, who is it? Aslam, he is going to take the core modules for the SAS.
Oh.
Right? You might ask, like, why Solars? First thing, right? We are an academic institution, federally accredited institution. We are in the business from 2007, almost 11 years, 12 years now. We had to have certain placement traits to be in business. And we cannot ask anyone to manipulate the resumes or anything too, but we teach. No one guarantees your job, but we, as a federal institution, gives you all the resources you need to take the first interview call to the next level. We do have collaborations with other companies where they take our interns. And then, especially in SAS Analytics, we have 3 months of internship. And we're going to get an extensive information about what we do in the internship later on from the student services. If you have any questions about the program or solars or anything, please send us an email or call us. We are more than happy to provide you all that information. I believe that this program also carries continuing credits, right? So the difference between other institutions and solars is that since it's a federal accredited institution, our hours goes with credit hours. And then any time if you want to transfer these to bigger universities as part of your tuition assistance or master's degree, they can be transferable, provided that the other university accepts it. Again, our competitive advantage is purely into health sciences, especially clinical research. And now we expanded that into data science, healthcare analytics, and any information technology related to clinical research. We do have clinical operations too. But again, hundreds of, I've been with Solars for 4 years now. I think it's my 4th year. It's working out for me, work, evening times. Morning I work, in the evening I teach. That's my passion. So that's how I keep myself to understand what's happening in the industry. Sometimes you get carried away, but that's one way I will see about this industry. Just to say, I mean, like every person is different, every situation is different, but I want to give one, simple example. Lisa Sharma, she did her master's in medicinal and pharmaceutical chemistry, and she worked as a research scientist for 4 years at Bristol Myers Squibb. Now, when you see scientists, what they do, they are extremely important in R&D, right? And then they are the ones who drive protocol development, protocol trainings, and even see the strategy for preclinical too. But now she found really challenging to get into the clinical side. And again, obviously, there were some gaps, being laid off, I guess, and then because of family reasons, she has to take some time off. But then she figured out, like, okay, she has the clinical knowledge, especially on the scientist level, exposed to the SAS Analytics in her job. Because in order for you to arrange set meetings, like safety evaluation team meeting, to coordinate with different cross functionalities and to get the snapshot of all the data, she might have been already, exposed to that. So she decided to enroll in our SAS Analytics boot camp we had back in November. Started as a SAS analyst, entry level. Was skeptical when you work for 4 years in a bigger pharma as a scientist and then going back into different role, right? But again, you have to see the situation, like you being out for 6 years and then trying to enter into the industry. Skeptical initially, but somehow she made it, and then she worked at Symbiance, and then obviously the training you got, the internship experience you got, and also your background always helps. She performed well. That's how most of the job opportunities are here. They always say contract to hire. People always say skeptical, why I have to be a contractor? Trust me, as a contractor, you make a lot more money than a head count. But that's one way of opportunity, because most of these sponsor companies, they have these overhead obligations, so they always outsource the trials. So they don't want to take the chance of directly hiring and have the thing, because we always used to vendors, and then you pay them a service fee. End of the day, it's an external service provider rather than having a head count and going through all the benefits, blah, blah, blah. But at one point, if I see that this particular person has a competitive advantage, they have education, competence, and skill set, and if I think that they add value to my organization, to my team, I will create a position and take it. So that's how she ended up as a full-time job in the same company as a clinical data analyst. So that's one example. I mean, I'm not presenting it to see that example. Every situation is different, but I'm just saying, like, this is a classic example of a lot of you folks online or someone may be going through, saying, like, I have X amount of years of experience in another domain, or supported clinical trials or preclinical trials or some other healthcare domain in a dotted line, and probably got laid off, or I had a gap in my thing, So this is a perfect example of saying that things does happen, but again, you don't lose. All you do is try, and then things work out. And especially what I am saying now is the whole industry is facing 19.6% turnover. So 3 years back, I might not have said that there's not enough jobs or something, but now there's so many jobs available. So why you have 19.6% turnover? It's because of employee opover about jobs. If you have the 2 years or 3 years of experience, genuine experience, you won't be sitting idle. A lot of big companies want to acquire you with more money, pay, prospects, pay for relocation expenses, you name it. So that's where the whole industry is facing a lot of turnover. So just type SAS Analytics or data analyst or any kind of data delivery lead, global data manager, type all these words. SAS programming. You see a bunch of jobs, either in the CRO or in the pharma. Now, how SAS will come into picture with regards to clinical research and data management. Again, as I said, we use this term loosely, data management. There's no such thing called clinical research and data management. Everything is together now. Clinical trials is not a single person's entity. It's a group work. It's a collaborative teamwork. Someone is developing the drug in an R&D in a discovery phase, but someone has to take things further to test the drug to make sure the drug is safe, make sure the drug is efficacious, and make sure the drug is either the best in the market or at least equivalent to the industry standard. For that, you need to run clinical trials. You already got information from earlier trials. We call in vitro, which is in the laboratories, right, where we give a shape to the drug. We call it as product optimization, stability testing. Then we want to make sure that, do you want to give this drug to the human beings? But we can't just have an experiment directly on the human beings. We want to test first in other species to make sure what is the right dose to start with. That's what we do, preclinical trials. We call them as animal models. Proof of concept, we do that too, yes. Yeah. And then not only that, you have discovery, you have toxicology studies, and then you have hypothesis testing. Before even you go into the animals, sometimes you see xenograph too, and chip models. Then it all again depends on therapeutic area, type of the drug, and is it a parenteral administration or oral. But again, you brought a good point, like how you do that and how you're going to capture that again, through data. Without the data, we can't go into the next phase. So whenever you see a clinical, always remember clinical involves human subjects. So that being said, preclinical, the tests are conducted in animal species. We capture all the data and then we ask permission to the FDA to give you permission to the clinical trials involving human subjects. We call them as IND application, investigational new drug application. Even to submit for an IND, what you need data. Not just the data in an organized format. We call ECTDs, Common Technical Document. You have different modules, preclinical, clinical, quality, and then you have admin, you have introductory sessions. So for that, we capture the data in the form of tables and listings. That's when we submit the data to the FDA in the form of an IND application. FDA has 30 days to respond, and then within the 30 days, they will respond either yes or no, or at least if they see a significant concern about the data that's been presented, they might put a clinical hold. Even if you do not hear back from the FDA within 30 days, you can still go ahead with your clinical trials, meaning your IND is still in effect. So that's when the clinical trial starts. We technically have 4 different phases. We have sub-phases too. I don't want to complicate things, but just, assume that now they have classic 4 phases of clinical trials. Phase 1, which is first in human trials. First time you're testing the drug. Here's the important hypothesis, or we call primary endpoint, to measure safety.
I know I just got it, but do you have to have a pharma background? Do you need to go to pharmacy school for this? Or?
For SAS?
Yeah, well, I know somebody did clinical trials for that. Yeah.
There are 2 types. If you are into the technical side, not necessarily pharmacy. If in the data management, you can have some kind of ID background. It's not hardcore programming, but SAS programming is programming, yes.
Okay.
But operations jobs, you don't have to. You need to understand the business domain.
Okay.
Yeah. So it all depends on what you're targeting for. Yeah. Yeah. I have project managers who are from criminal justice background. I have a global trial leaders who are from finance backgrounds. So at one point, like all these technical things collaborate into manager section. When you go into the manager level, it doesn't matter what your background is. You need to have a business because you need to understand the business now. So that's how it works. Yeah. Again, how you're proving safety? You can't just say my drug is safe, right? You need to substantiate with the credible data. Always remember two important things in pharma, either SAS or operations, wherever. Subject safety is the most important. Data integrity is very important. We invest so many millions on different kinds of systems. Why? Because a lot of companies got busted because of data issues, falsified data, delinquent data. They entered into corporate integrity agreements with federal governments and then paid billions of dollars in fine. Why? Because of a falsifying data, intentional, unintentional, but FDA doesn't care. If you submit, if they found out something is wrong, they're going to impose huge amount of fines on pharma. Because pharma companies make billions and billions of dollars on the sales, right? One blockbuster drug can fund 200 different clinical trials. So in order for you to prove safety, what you're trying to prove, what happens if your drug is not safe? You expect adverse events, right? Side effects. So that's where we capture in safety profile. We see what are the number of adverse events. So that's how we create a hypothesis, saying like, okay, we are trying to do first in human safety profile. This is our primary endpoint, number of adverse events. The lesser the number of adverse events, the more safer is your drug. And we also see what is the escalation, dose phase, and we say what is the recommended phase 2. Here again, two important roles comes into picture. Programming, SAS programming, and second one is biostatisticians. They work in close conjunction. Because we say there's a model to do dose escalations. How are we going to do? Okay, if you are starting 1 mg, what is the norm? We're going to go all the way to 2 milligrams. That's 100% increase, right? Twofold increase. Is there a norm? What are the models we see? Or can we go from 1 to 1.5 mg? What are the pros and cons? Why can't we directly go into 4? That's like 4-fold increase, right? So all these will be discussed between biostats and programming. How? Again, from preclinical data. And that's when we have data to substantiate what is the first dose we're going to start in human beings. Phase 1, we capture data again in EDC systems, and then we go to phase 2. We ask permission to go to phase 2. Phase 2 talks about two important parameters, safety and efficacy. Does the drug really work? What happens if the drug works? You expect positive results, right? We call it as observable response rate, again, by a statistician. Our overall response rate. Number of positive responses is directly proportional to efficacy profile of the drug. We capture data and then we submit permission to go to phase 3, a comprehensive elaborative trial where we have randomization, blinding, and pretty organized trials to avoid bias. Here what you're trying to prove. You already prove your drug is safe and efficacious, but there are already established drugs in the market. There are already industry standard drugs in the market. Why FDA has to give permission to your particular drug? Here now you're proving either your drug is the best in the market or at least equivalent to the industry standard. That's where we have superior non-inferior trials. You're saying, okay, mine is the best. Or at least equivalent, me too, like a predicate drug to the industry standard. That's where we prove in phase 3. Where we prove safety, efficacy by comparing it with either industry standard or placebo. And here stats programming makes a huge deal in these trials. Because when we do a blinding component, we have to make sure that who is getting what in different cohorts. So the data management, stats, biostats, and programming work in collaboration to get the data outputs to the clinical team so that they can decide what are the different models, what are the different cohorts we had, and then what kind of pharmacokinetic samples we are getting, what is the estimated turnaround time for pharmacodynamic results, and how we're going to use these results to go into next hypothesis. Because at phase 3, we can see sometimes based on emerging data, we targeted this drug to treat XYZ. But data is proving that not only XYZ, it's also can treat ABC, another indication. So a lot of these blockbuster drugs were found because of that. We call it as adverse events of special interest. Even though it's adverse event, but it's actually beneficial for another patient.
But when it is beneficial, why you call as adverse event?
Beneficial for another patient, not for the target patients.
Yep.
For example, if I say this particular drug is intended to treat or reduce the pain, right? But emerging data shows that there is a growing trend of lowering blood pressure, hypertension. That's an adverse event for this selected population because that was not there from the baseline or something. But by seeing it, physiologically we thought that this particular drug class has no intention of having a lower blood pressure because normally we see that in chemistry and pharmacology. But now we don't know either the patient population or something. The trend was like this drug is lowering blood pressure. Now blood pressure is an adverse event for them, but from a study team, strategic team, we think that this adverse event of special interest because we need to consider, well, can we open another cohort with a high blood pressure, hypertensive patients and see what's going to happen? If it is really lowering the blood pressure, probably this might benefit those patients. That's the initial hypothesis, very basic, but at least that's the starting point to think about a different indication. Technically, adverse event of special interest, normally we see in neurological patients, especially for oncology, where we kind of anticipated them, but we didn't see the trend like this often, and then what are the contributing factors. So it's all about why we are saying special interest is not like, it's just a curiosity, but we want to explore like why it is happening. Can we see the cause and effect? Can we open another cohort only selecting, okay, why these particular patients are getting these adverse events? So let's explore. Either is there genomic things, or is there genetic profile, or is there CD8 count? That's a special interest for the sponsor to dig into more details and to open up different cohorts for further study. Now, after we have elaborated data from phase 3, we submit another application to the FDA. We call it as NDA application, which is new drug application. Here we are asking permission for the FDA to actually market the drug because we already proved three important things: the safety profile of the drug, efficacy profile of the drug, competitive viability or commercial viability of the drug. How again? By substantiating credible data we collected from different systems, by treating the patients with the drug. Now the turnaround time for NDA is anyway between 2 to 2.5 years. FDA will review the data. If they have any questions, they will come back to you. Otherwise, they will give you permission. But still, pharmaceutical companies also continue with their phase 4 trials. The drug might be safe now, but what if 10 years down the line, it might have a dangerous implications on your P450 enzymes or concomitant medications or drug-drug interactions with the general public. Because in clinical trials, what we do is we control our patient population with inclusion and exclusion criteria. Most of the times we avoid children, we avoid pregnant, we avoid low immunocompromised, we avoid senior citizens. That doesn't mean that no one gets the drug, right? Pregnant will get the drug. Children needs drug, right? The only way we can test is when the drug has been fully approved by the FDA and be prescribed to the general population. There we establish patient registries and then social media accounts, and then we have MedWatch. That's what we call it as pharmacovigilance, continuous surveillance.
So this is a kind of a survey that we do, or kind of a samples that we pick up and do all this.
There's a multi-factor, a lot of things involved in that research. Some we do directly a survey with patient registries. We do some questions there. Some we directly have collaboration with the primary care physicians. And then FDA always have a MedWatch where everyone can go and report it voluntary reporting system. So we get, again, data. We get data from multiple sources.
So this is being tested on humans or?
This is all clinical trials. When we talk clinical trials, it's all human beings, yes. The scope of this program is clinical trials involving human subjects. But before that, it's preclinical.
And how big is the data usually? How big is the data?
NDA application is anywhere 200,000 pages, electronic pages, but now we use into CTD format, into 5 different modules.
So you deal with both numeric and the text data?
I think so, yeah.
So you're testing on the patients too?
No, 2.5 years is the review time for the FDA to review a data, and within the 2.5 years, they also come for inspection of the hospitals, facilities, sponsor, and if they have any questions or anything, then probably they might put a clinical hold. The 2.5 years, 2 to 2.5 years is the review time for the new drug application for FDA to come back. Some can be expedited, but this is the regular turnaround. But if you have Ebola, and then you can't wait for 2.5 years, so that can be on expedited level. But when you talk, in detail, your instructor can explain about the total turnaround time for the whole clinical trials. Whole clinical trials takes anywhere between 8 to 10 years, from phase 1 to phase 4. Now here, if you see a busy slide, but when you work for pharma, you see so many systems, right? But systems doesn't really help unless they talk to each other. System integrations. And how are we going to do that? Data transfers, data mapping, right? And how SAS comes into picture. You see the center. That's the center repository, right? Some use SAS, some use, different types of database. But if you see how it is communicating with different systems. Yes.
Two questions. So how clinical data manager or clinical data manager role is in this picture?
Clinical data management role?
Or manager, clinical data manager.
It depends on the scope. In the trials I worked with, clinical data manager liaise with the SAS programmers and biostatisticians, but their job is to deal with clinical database, which is EDC system.
Okay.
But they also have a DTS, transfer agreements with the vendors to make sure that data is coming into it. But clinical data managers liaise with the SAS programming because they need outputs from the different systems, and then they will put that output into the LSAP format for the SAS and programming to come back with the listings and tables. So they interact, but clinical data management, they act as a lead for all the data management activities at the study level. Now to capture clinical data, we need EDC system. Now EDC will integrate with CTMS system, which is clinical trial management system. We also have integration with IWRS, Interactive Web Response System for patient screenings, randomizations. Then when we capture serious adverse events, safety profile, we deal with safety database, which is ORGUS, right? And if you see, I'm going through the drums down. CTMS, which is pretty much for all management of clinical trials. ORGUS is for safety or pharmacovigilance. Electronic data capture, we call it as a clinical database. And then electronic transfer of lab, EKG, imaging. What is that? That is data transfers from different vendors. The vendors has to send all the data to your data management through data transfer agreements, through data mapping. Now all these will, and then also we have ePro devices, patient diaries. Nowadays we have, in addition to the CRF pages, we have PAM-top kind of ePro devices. So we see the patient outcomes. We call it as electronic patient reported outcomes. Quality of life questionnaire, yes.
Do you use Medidata or something? Medidata?
That's the CTMS.
Which one?
CTMS.
CTMS.
Yes. Medidata is an example of CTMS system. In our internship for operations, we use Clinical Conductor, which is our CTMS system. But Medidata is a wide popular CTMS system, and their counterpart for EDC is RAVE. Medidata and RAVE work in conjunction. If you see a lot of vendors...
CTMS and EDC both.
Yeah. If you see Parexel, Perceptive Informatics, they own Impact, which is a CTMS system, but they own EDC, which is Data Labs. So most of the companies who do CTMS also have EDC because that's how the integration works. Now all these input goes into SAS because, that's the repository where we're going to extract listings and tables. And once we have, yes.
Hope I can ask questions.
Definitely. Unless it is pure programming, I cannot answer, but if it is pure...
What is the percentage, if you look at based on your experience and observation, what is the percentage of work or data, CTMS or EDC, with respect to SAS, that middle portion? How do you say, okay, that is 10% of the data goes here, maybe 15% here? Any idea?
It's not about percentage. I don't see any percentage because
I don't think so, because, it all depends on the data, the patient data, what data you are getting from CTM staff.
Okay, not percentage. Okay, what is the role of, okay, for example, if somebody is using SAS drug discovery, that whatever the database and repository you put, okay, anybody who is working in this area, they will touch 100% of that. Or I can say Argus, maybe they may work maybe 10% on that. Any percentages of touching that, different modules or area?
I don't think persons who are working in the SAS Analytics directly deal with that thing. But you mean like working on the Argus
Yeah.
or something? No, they are separate SAE specialists who will be working on
Okay.
Argus. Because drug safety associates, like signal,
So,
yeah.
all are kind of, when you look at all these are all almost all independent roles.
Depending on the organization.
Yeah.
Bigger pharmas always have. Small one, you will be this one and that one, but in a bigger organizations, big pharmas where they have all the systems.
Yeah, and
Because some of them don't even have Argus, they do manual,
yeah.
right? So, but in a different, like if I say J&J or any bigger pharmas, you have separate people who will be working only on the particular tool or system. And then I have SAS programmers for my studies, all studies for ED. They only work in the SAS, but whenever we invite them for cross-functional trial team meeting, they always liaise with the data managers because they say, okay, we are having a set meeting for dose escalation.
Okay, that is my question actually. Okay, in your team, how many SAS programmers are there? How many CTMS? How many EDC? How many the other one? Approximately IVRS.
Again, it depends on who am I. Yes, if I'm liaising,
In
for example.
organization, what is the population it represents?
If I say clinical data management, right?
Yeah.
If I have a doubt, my go-to guy is a global clinical data manager.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how many he or she is managing it because like it's an again organization
Fine.
within the different.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about the study level. When I'm at the study, this is one. My portfolio means I have different studies.
I got it.
When you say one study, my go person is global clinical data
I
manager.
got it, yeah.
Within that, again, you have data delivery leads, CDA, clinical data analyst, junior level, and then blah, blah, blah. Same thing with SAS programming. You have a SAS lead, delivery leads, then you have SAS programmers, then you have SAS analysts, and then so on and so forth. So I don't know how many they have within that. That's a different organization again for that.
But why again SAS? I mean, why can't they do this in R or Python? There are so many statistical tools, right? So why do you think SAS plays a major role in clinical trials?
I don't see it's a major one. It's one of them because I heard Python too. I know in my organization we use R2. Yeah, we use Python too. But if it is detailed about the SAS, because this is about SAS, probably without SAS, at one point everyone was talking about SAS. So your instructor will explain you more in details about the scope. You know, because if it is not, then we don't have any SAS programmers. But we use Python and R2, but mostly that they use biostatisticians use R2, statistical persons. But we still need SAS programmers and SAS analysts for our outputs. If you see table listing, that I rely on it. SAS Analytics is my cornerstone for me to analyze my pharmacokinetic samples, pharmacodynamic samples, because that drives my dose levels. Yes.
So I'm trying to understand. That's why I'm asking more questions. Okay.
There's no
I have IT background, so
no.
I'm trying to understand what is the
Yes.
biotech background, how it interacts. So here, when you say SAS database repository or analytical tables and all, so that is more of a technical work with a biotech understanding. They should have biotech knowledge, but it is basically a technical work, am I right?
Yeah.
Basically IT work.
Yes.
So here, can you name which module is a purely IT? Is all IT related?
These are all, again, within the work, there are different ones. If you are seeing CTMS, right, example.
Yeah.
Clinical trial management system, that is, you can use the system in different ways. If I am a business person, I use as an end user.
I got it. Okay, but
In the
yeah, I got it.
There are programmers to maintain that.
I got it.
EDC, electronic data capture.
Same way, I got it.
Hospital staff, what they do, there's a
They just
user to enter the data.
So basically, all this there is some IT involved. Okay.
At one point, yes, information technology is involved, but this is like a snapshot of the process. different roles are involved based on what their role with regards to clinical trial.
Hello.
All right. So I just want to give this snapshot to see, like, from a business level, like how this one integrates with everything.
Hi, this is Shiva. I have a question here.
Contact our student services, but if you have technical questions, your instructor, Aslam, will take it from now, okay? But I'll be there within the building. Any questions, please stop by, okay? Thank you.
What is his name? Praveen?
Hello, Professor Aslam. Thank you, Dr. Praveen. Let me hand over the session to Professor Aslam. He is going to brief you through the clinical SAS part of the program. So anything related to this technical, Professor Aslam is going to take care of.
Yeah, Geeta, can you hear me?
Yes, Professor, I can hear you.
Great. Okay. Well, before I begin, I'm not sure if someone was trying to ask a question before Mr. Praveen left. I guess someone was trying to ask a question.
Okay. Anybody who has questions, please drop it in the chat box so we can address them.
All right, so let's begin then. Are you going to be presenting a slide, Geeta, or do you want me to?
I'm giving you the presenter rights, Professor. Just give me one.
Okay. Okay, till you do that, maybe let me introduce myself. So, my name is Aslam Khan. I currently work at Sanofi Pharmaceuticals as a program project manager. I've been part of the life science industry for the past 12 years in various roles of biostatistics and clinical data management. I worked in pretty much all the big pharmas here, except J&J, which I guess the previous instructor was. I worked in Novartis, Merck, and other places here. I have a master's degree in information systems, so I'm more of a technology-oriented person. So I will probably try to answer the questions which I've been hearing from the previous people regarding the technology orientation, and if you do not have a background with IT or some kind of a programming background. So I'll certainly be happy to answer those questions. And in fact, one of my first slides that I would like to share across with you is precisely to answer the question that I just heard from someone, why SAS, right? So Geeta, if you have given me the presenter rights, I will share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen? I believe yes, you can, right? Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm going a little off script from the slides I was given to present. So I thought it's really important for you all to, maybe most of you have this consternation that if we do not have programming background, will we be able to manage this course? So I will try to address that concern. But before that, let me try to move away this thing.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, Aslam. This is Shiva here. I have a quick question before we go into the why SAS. I saw the previous slide where it says the SAS is like a wrapper between the data and further things. But what I'm thinking is like it is like a template where we create it and leave it. Like for example, if you create a program, you create it one time and you leave it because the clinical data won't come that frequent, right? It requires sufficient time to get capture the data, and that will be an input to the program, right? So once you create the program, what will be the SAS opportunities to do other activities? I'm not clear on that. If you can explain, that would be great. Hope you got my question.
So, yeah, I did get your question. So what I'll do is I clearly see that I could address that when I talk about the CDISC standards. So I would probably hold on till then.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thanks for the question, though. So what I'm trying to explain here is that you see in the middle that there is a simple table that we need to create as part of your task is to create two variables called as x and y, let's say. From very simply, the values within them would be 1 to 10, right? So you would, if you want to do this, you would quickly pick up probably an Excel sheet, a spreadsheet, and start filling in the values. However, if I told you to actually program it using a programming language like C++, Java, and other probably .NET and other programming languages, you would probably be doing what is written here. So you see this long list of lines of code is to actually generate this simple table that you have. So what you do, what you would be doing is to create that, you'd be writing these 20 or 30 lines or probably even more, just simply to create one simple table like this. And you can imagine the complexity involved in it, and if you do not have a programming background and do not understand the syntax, you would obviously go completely off or probably get defeated with this purpose. So what SAS does instead is all the way on the left, what you see is it provides a very simple programming platform to create probably not a very simple table like this, but even complex tables that are involved in life science industry. So you see here that by writing these few lines of code, probably 7 or 8 lines of code, which is very intuitive enough to probably understand, probably could be understood by anybody who may not have any programming background. It's very easy to understand, and the syntax is pretty intuitive enough, and it can actually do a lot more than this that is being demonstrated here. So the whole point here is to demonstrate to you that SAS is a very easy language. In fact, it is built for the purposes of working with data sets and doing a lot of manipulation with data sets, and being in an industry like life science, and for that matter any other industry where there is the primary component is the data and you're working with data, SAS provides these really powerful functionalities and features to be able to play around with it. And to those people who may have doubts as to will this be good enough for them to get into this field, you can actually see it right here, is that the programming is very simple and very intuitive enough, and pretty much anybody would be able to pick it up, even if you do not have any prior programming background. So in the interest of time, I'll probably move on, just because I have many more slides to present. So, Geeta, do you want to actually present from your side, because I may not have the most recent one? Geeta, are you there? Yeah. Okay. So having convinced you at least that SAS is a very simple language to be learned, and it is built for the purposes of playing around with the program, or rather data, I'll probably move on further into other aspects of standardization. So what you see here, at least as part of the coursework that we offer at Scholars, which is a module 2, which pertains to the actual SAS programming itself. As part of this coursework, you will be learning the foundational aspects of SAS, meaning the programming aspects, really starting from the basics, elementary level. And at the end of this course, you will be able to do sufficient enough programming to be able to survive in the industry. And we'll be going through a lot of data steps, procedures, proc steps, and real-life data sets that will be used in the industry. And we'll walk through many such examples, which will give you enough confidence to be able to work with actual data when you get a chance. And we actually do not stop there. We actually move also and teach you what are called as the CDISC standardizations. What that really is an emerging, or rather the most probably the hot field in clinical programming in life science industry is the standardization part, where pretty much almost every company that's out there, or big company or pharma company, is wanting their data to be standardized. And what do we mean by standardization here is basically the fact that the data is very disparate or spread across in multiple sources or formats when it is done by multiple companies. And since the data sources may not be in the same format and they're coming from various sources, it may not look like the same, right? So when that is the case, it becomes really difficult for one single company to be able to handle all this kind of different data that's coming in. So what they realized over the course of time is that if we can introduce something what is called as standardization, which really means, and I remember the previous instructor mentioned about data mapping. It is basically what is called as data mapping, meaning taking data that is coming in from multiple sources in various forms and really mapping it into structured, predefined nomenclature is what is called as CDIS standardization. And that's a very nice field to be in the life science industry. And there's a lot of work that's currently going on. There's a consortium group that works on what is called as SDTM. The full form is Study Data Tabulation Model. And of course the ADAM, which is the Analysis Data Model. So these are the two major standards that are out there offered by the consortium CDISC. And as part of this coursework, that is exactly what we will be doing, is to walk you through the concepts, the foundational aspects, how do you build the standards, and eventually get the SDTM and ADAM data sets that is shown here using SAS, of course. So what you see on the left is really the starting point where the data comes in as the ECRFs or the raw data sets, and we will convert that using SDTM principles and specifications to SAS data sets. And from there, we could also go ahead and convert them to ADAM data sets and eventually be able to make them ready for reporting and probably even submission to FDA. So there's a current trend in the industry that everything that's submitted to FDA has to be in standard structure that is defined in the define.xml, which is displayed here. So these are all kind of the current trends in the industry, in the life science industry, that are good fields to be in at this point. And to the question that previously people had asked, would you be doing everything that's shown out there? But certainly the answer is no. There are experts who would look into specific areas. For example, the CDISC portion is surrounded by experts who fully understand what the concepts are and how do we do them. So that is what we'll be doing as part of this coursework. And beyond the coursework, and by the end of it, it should have given you enough confidence to be able to not only play with SAS and work with data sets and generate reports and listings that are needed for FDA submission, but also understand what are CDISC concepts, and that means the SDTM and ADAM concepts. So that is what the coursework is all about. And talking about the internships, as you all may know, this coursework is followed by a very hands-on internship that will give you the benefit of working with real-life data that's currently used in the life science industry. And as you also may know, it's offered by a partner. It's called a CRO partner called as Untitled. And Untitled has partnered with Solars to allow you to practice and work in real time with actual data. And as part of the projects that you'll be working with Untitled, the first one being is the generation of an analysis data set. And as an example that's shown here, you'll be working with real lab data. And in fact, one of the most complex data sets is the lab data set. So by working with this, it will probably have propelled you and made you confident enough to work in a real life setting. So that's the project one that's being spoken here to work with lab data. The project two is going to allow you to do what is called as a QC of SDTM dataset. And QC here really means quality control. And I believe as part of this, you should also be working with generation of actual SDTM datasets. So you see here the DM dataset means really the demographic datasets. It's one of the foundational datasets that's available in SDTM, and it really has the contents of all the patients, their demographics, as it says, the race, ethnicity, age, sex, and things like that. So this will give you an idea of the foundational aspects of SDTM and be able to validate the data sets, which is another important aspect, is to be able to ensure that the data sets you generate is really correctly done. So QC here means really the validation of data sets and ensuring that all the principles and nomenclature have been followed. So that's the project 2, and project 3 will be even more exciting because it is about QC of adverse event tables and, of course, demographic tables too. So one of the most important data sets in SGTM, and for that matter, any clinical trial, is the adverse events, as have been spoken earlier in the first half of the session. So you'll be working with, this will give you a chance to work with actual adverse events data sets in actual setting. So by the end of it, you should be able to understand what adverse events are, what are the various standardization steps and procedures and variable names and things like that, and be able to fully understand not only just these data sets, and in this whole process, it will give you a picture of what are the other SGTM data sets that are out there. And from there, you can expand your knowledge to be able to work in a real-life setting. So those are some of the projects you'll be working with as part of the internship that follows the coursework. And this is really, I guess, just a representation to maybe to get you a little excited about in terms of the expected salaries. And of course, don't quote us on this. It's just an average. So you can, of course, pull this information from internet, from anywhere. So it's just to illustrate the abilities there. And then, this is about the time frame and the class structure. So what we'll be doing as part of this internship, well, first of all, the duration of the program itself is 10 weeks, followed by internship. And so if you have any specific questions, please feel free to ask the student services regarding that. The class schedule, which is, first of all, I will be taking the SAS programming sessions. I'll be the instructor for that. And for the previous module, maybe, of course, there are other instructors who would be taking care of it. So class schedule is weekdays, evenings, and Saturdays. And the weekdays usually are online setting. So wherever you may be, you could certainly conveniently join from wherever you are, and you would not be expected to be in person. But we certainly encourage if you can make it in person on Saturdays, though. So that's an opportunity for us to connect in person, face-to-face, and be able to clarify on certain things. That's the class schedule, and the format is, like I've just mentioned, is hybrid, in-person and online, as you wish. The benefit of this is that, if you can go back still, the benefit is that you will still be able to, in case you miss something, there are recordings available, and you can refer them back, and you will certainly not miss on anything if you happen to not attend that particular session. SAS software will be provided to you due to the partnership we have with SAS, and that will be free of cost for you to be able to use during your coursework. And of course, the support faculty is going to be available 2 days a week online. We had gathered as part of our previous experience some of the most commonly asked questions. If these are some of your questions too, maybe I can quickly answer them. And if they're apart from these, please let us know. So how important is clinical knowledge to statistical programming in pharmaceuticals? Well, again, like I answered to that question in one of my first slides, even if you have just the basic understanding, that's fine. And if you had none, you could certainly get that as part of this coursework. And if you already have some, that's well and good. What are the job opportunities for SAS clinical programming? I guess the previous instructor had already spoken about it. And if you wish to know further, please let us know. What is the required educational background for clinical SAS positions? Well, again, it ties back to the first point. There is no real requirement in terms of the degree or the qualifications. Most often they would ask for a bachelor's degree. And if you have master's, that's well and good. But I think that's been at least the minimum requirement as far as I have seen. What will we do in the internship? How will the internship benefit us? And do we get the certificate of completion of the internship? Well, what will we do in the internship? I mean, that's, like I just mentioned, you will be working with real-life data, and it will take you through a full real hands-on experience of actually working in a real-life setting. So that's what it will do to you by the end of it. It will make you confident enough to take up an actual position. And you will certainly get a certificate at the completion of internship, which could be used as a proof of kind of an experience of working in the pharma industry. Can this entire program be done online? Yes, ideally yes. I mean, preferably if you could be in person, like I mentioned, on Saturdays, that's well and good. Otherwise, if there is a constraint for you, you could certainly do that. And since the internship is also online, and you do not even have to come in for that as well. So the entire coursework from start to end could be done online, if that is what your constraints are. Since the internship is offered online, you could be sitting anywhere and still be able to work with the company that we have partnered with. Do you provide...
Professor, just a second. Some of the students here in the class have some questions. Can you just 1 moment?
Do you mind if I finish all this and then we can ask questions?
Okay, sure, Professor. Thank you.
Yeah, just 2 points. So do you provide SAS software access? Like I mentioned, yes, SAS will be provided to you free of cost, and you can access that whenever you wish. And will we get access to clinical data sets? There's a course portal that will be provided to you, and that has a lot of data sets available at your disposal, and you could download them and work with them. And as part of the course, we will be working with the data that's available there. Does this program help us prepare for base SAS certification? Well, one of the biggest benefits is that it will enable you to be ready for the certification exams that's available there. So not only base, but maybe even advanced SAS if that is what you intend to do, because we will be covering those topics as well.